So the rough cut and the demo reel, basically this is going to be a play blast or render of your whole animation. Theoretically, by this point, it should be finished. When I'm recording this video, there's 2 weeks that you have to get that done over Thanksgiving break. And like I said, so I've mentioned this before, but the rough cut is due 1 week before the final. So theoretically, with this being mostly done at this point, again, theoretically, you have time to go back and make any, like, quick animation tweaks, people say. You know, if there's, like, a weird timed fall or something like that, you can clean that up really quick. Finish the last 1 or 2 things that you might have for lighting and texturing, and then you can go in and just pretty much have a week to render your final without, doing a bunch of crazy crunch timing. That's the theory, but again, this should be pretty much your entire animation with your theoretically final camera angles. Everything should be as final as you can possibly get it. This is your last chance to really get feedback on your whole piece, your whole animation, before you submit your final. You also should have a demo reel with your most up-to-date animation, so I'll go over that in a minute. It's not worth a huge amount of points, but it is, enough to bump you up from, like, a letter grade kind of thing. And this, again, most of what I'm looking for in this is pretty much, it's not really like a learning outcome thing per se, but, like, ideally this is something that you wouldn't be ashamed to turn in for the final. Again, ideally. I realize it doesn't always happen, but that's sort of like the goal of this when I was setting up the assignments. I've said pretty much all of this before, but basically, the point breakdown for this is, it's worth 6 points overall. So 1 point of that is just the demo reel. Did you meet the requirements listed in the doc, which again I'll go over in a second. The camera work, so like how does that compare to your original clip versus what you have, or if you modified it, that's totally fine, but like does that serve to enhance the animation? And then 4 points are kind of divided between character life and the sort of physical realism of the motion. So character life is going to be more or less like how alive do your characters feel? Do they feel dynamic? That's more of a sort of artistic-y piece, I guess. Alright, so I have some examples here of, like, if your character is tied up, make them quivering instead of just sort of like attached to a pole, that kind of thing. And this is where a lot of times you'll want to take creative liberties, because in a lot of original clips it's mostly sort of characters emoting with their face, whereas you presumably don't have a face, so you have to figure out how to basically use body language to convey the same information. So that's 2 points. And then the character weight motion and secondary motion, this is mostly just like, do they move in a physically realistic way? So if you have them falling or jumping, does that look physically realistic? Are they clipping through anything super crazy? If they're doing some kind of walk cycle, like how does that feel? So again, a lot of this is sort of, the bulk of the points of this are really split between the sort of physical realism of the animation as it stands versus the sort of overall interpretation of said animation. So what to submit? My voice there. What to submit? A play blast with the most updated animation and models. So again, this should be cut together, compressed with something like Media Encoder. Zip file doesn't really count for compressing stuff. So play blast, and then a zip file with a render every 20 frames of your animation. And I have you offsetting these a little bit, so instead of starting on frame 1, like you probably have been doing, start on frame 15, so you get a different variation of frames from your previous test frames. Just in case, that helps you catch something weird that you maybe haven't seen before. If you rendered the whole rough cut, feel free to skip this because it's really redundant at that point. And I think if you want to render the whole rough cut at not full HD, you're welcome to do that. So do like 920 by 540 or whatever the heck the specs are for that. Because I think it would be beneficial to do that, and there's really no reason that you would have to render this in full HD. That being said, if you are doing a play blast, do render that in full HD. I'm just going to say full HD. I don't know what HDS is. Can be HD 540. All right, cool. So that, and then a rough cut of the demo reel. So if you could, the only thing that I want zipped in this is the renders. I would like both videos to be just floating individually in your submission. So please don't zip them, but do compress them with something, again, like media encoder or something like that. So that is the rough cut and demo reel. Let's actually go over the demo reel real quick. And again, so the demo reel is linked on the specs for the rough cut, as well as the doc with the demo reel also has all the info for the final and how I'm grading that and all of that good stuff as well. So anywho, demo reel basically is just sort of like a breakdown of the process of doing your scene. So usually what I would recommend to do, and in this case what I'm requiring that you do, is break your screen down into 4 and sort of show the different parts of your animation process on the 4 screen at once. So if I get a real janky little thing of Microsoft Paint, so imagine that this is your screen, and you divide it into 4, so you have your original clip here, and your okay, I should really just use the text tool, but I really hate Paint. And then you would have your storyboard up here. I don't know why I just wrote ANIM for that. Then this would be your rough animation, and then this would be your final animation here. So obviously you don't have your final at this point for this week, so what you'd want to do is just leave this blank and say like final incoming, or just leave it blank, whatever is totally fine. This is basically a crappy visual representation of what I have sort of typed out here. The one thing that I do sort of want to point out is, so again, this should be, and these should all be synced together with your audio synced. So make sure that that's a thing. So basically, nothing super fancy for the original animation. The storyboard should be cut together so it moves, correctly. Basically, like, just turn it into a little, like, 2D animatic. And again, sync that together. It should make sense with whatever's happening in your original clip. And then for the work in progress animations, this is the thing that I kind of want to stress. But this should be proper work in progress animations, not just your final but unrendered. So I see that a lot. So just, again, make sure that this is like some kind of actual work in progress animation rather than an unrendered final submission. You should, have some of those kicking around because I've been making you do them every week. So, when in doubt, you can always just sort of refer back to that. So again, this should all be on the same screen. Just divide your screen into 4, and they should all be synced together and happening at the same time. Don't do the thing where you like show your original clip, then show your storyboard, then show your other stuff, other pieces of this. Also, please don't add a opening screen to this. There's really no reason for it. The only time you might want to do that is if you're adding it to a portfolio or something like that. But in this case, there is no portfolio. It just kind of makes it harder to look at and loop when you're looking at it. So again, please don't do that for this. If you need to add that, you can add it later or throw this in a demo reel or whatever. That's pretty much the demo reel. And overall it's worth 2 points. So this is when you submit it for the final rather than a little like test demo reel. And I'm having you submit a test because a lot of times people will like have some weird formatting issues or something like that. So I just wanted to give you guys a chance to make make tweaks to the demo reel. It shouldn't be a hugely annoying project. And then like once you're done with the demo reel sort of test that's due at the same time as the rough cut, you can go through and just comp in the final animations denoted here with this sad looking U. But you can just throw that in and resubmit it with that, and that's really the only extra work you should have to do for that. So overall, I mean, this is mostly just literally a quarter of the 2-point grade for this is just, did you do all the things? Have you submitted all of these parts? That kind of thing. The overall quality is going to be stuff like, again, have you synced your, what's the word? Storyboard. Haha. Have you synced your storyboard in? Does your audio line up? Does the animation in the final clip match what's going on in the original, or is it like out of sync by a few seconds? That kind of stuff. So there's nothing else super fancy about this, but that's pretty much the rough cut and the demo reel.